We've all been hooked into this extremely long and epic story that we call One Piece, even sinking in countless hours just reading the manga or watching the anime. But what I've been wondering is, how were we hooked into One Piece in the first place? It's common to hear that One Piece only gets good after Luffy finds Zoro, or the Baratie arc, or more famously, the scene of Luffy giving his hat to Nami at Arlong Park. But that's only 10, 20, 30 episodes down the line. It doesn't make sense to me that you have to spend that much time just to get hooked into this show. I mean, you can chalk it up to bad pacing, but that doesn't mean One Piece is a bad story. No, the real question we should be asking is, why did we keep watching past episode 1? What is so special about episode 1 of One Piece that kept us watching more? To answer that question, we have to go back and look at the episode itself. Lucky for you, I was able to take a pretty good look at it recently, and when I did, what I found was really surprising. So much so that I couldn't actually believe how obvious it was, that it was literally right under our noses. Allow me to explain how I got there. So before going into this process, I wanted to clarify the things that I love about One Piece. Now, there are so many good things that I can say about One Piece, but out of all of them, I boiled it down to 3 major points: plot, world, and characters. You're free to tell me what you love about One Piece down in the comments below and tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, but those are the big 3 for me. So with using these 3 big elements, I wanted to see if they were present in the first episode and see if they had any factor in getting me hooked into the show. First off, let's talk about plot. Now, what's funny about the plot is that it's actually established in the classic opening, We Are. We get the iconic wealth, fame, power speech done by Gold D. Roger, and then the opening plays. We see all the pirates go out to sea, then we see Luffy's crew in a cool montage of them just doing what they do best. As like a normal viewer of One Piece or someone who's actually read the manga, we kind of understand that this is the crew and this is who we're expected to see, and this is what we want to watch overall. But if we're thinking about it from the perspective of someone who is completely fresh to One Piece, who has not consumed any One Piece content whatsoever, they'll probably be saying something along the lines of,
Who the hell are these people?
yeah, exactly. Beyond the opening, there is of course the plot to the actual episode, which revolves around our main character, Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy is out in boat gets sucked in whirlpool. Luffy starts floating through the entire sea until he gets picked up by a passenger boat. That passenger boat gets later raided by pirates. Those pirates find his barrel, he breaks out, he talks to this wimpy kid, then he says that he wants to be king of the pirates, then starts to wail on some enemy pirates trying to kill him, and then after beating the ever-loving shit out of them, leaves the boat with said wimpy kid. Okay, so this doesn't really make any sense to me. Why does the plot to this sound really boring to me? If I was a newer viewer to One Piece and this was the plot summary that I got from the entire episode, I probably wouldn't want to watch any more episodes afterwards. It's cool that Luffy wants to be the king of the pirates like that Gold Roger guy, but doesn't that also mean he's gonna get executed eventually? I mean, who would do that? That's kind of stupid, right? I don't want to die. With all that being said, I could actually rule out the plot of the first episode being a major factor in why I would get hooked into One Piece. But now, here's a big one. How about the world of One Piece? I mean, as a normal consumer of One Piece content, I know that there are so many islands, pirate crews, organizations, all with their unique backstories and designs that still fascinate me to this day. So, are they ever present in episode 1? Unfortunately, no. All we know is that the setting of this show pretty much revolves around being out in sea, and you're either a pirate or a marine, and if you're a pirate, you're terrorizing civilians and trying to get as much treasure as you want, while if you're a marine, you're trying to chase down these bad pirates terrorizing the civilians. Oh yeah, and of course there's this what's it called, this big treasure called the One Piece. I don't know if you ever heard of it. I forget where I heard it from. I think it's the name of this show. I think, don't quote me on it, but I digress. You get my point, right? Having only 30 minutes to describe how vast and amazing the world of One Piece isn't a lot of time. So when it comes down to episode 1, there's only one thing left that we could look at, and that's the characters of this episode. Now I will preface this, out of everything this show has to offer, the characters are what really pulls me in. I mean, all of them have their own unique goals and motivations that are all revolving around chasing their own dreams, right? However, besides all the beautifully crafted characters in the rest of the show, we still need to see if the characters in this episode were the reason we were hooked into One Piece to begin with. To break it down for you, there's only really 3 main characters in this episode. First, we have Luffy, and as I described earlier in the plot, he's obviously a dreamer who's extremely ambitious and really strong. However, what's actually super fascinating about Luffy is that in the first half of the episode, we don't know how strong he is or how reckless he is to begin with. You can argue that him waking up out of the barrel in the passenger ship and knocking out 2 pirates would be a good indication of how strong he is, but I don't know where that strength originally comes from. Also, the only reckless thing that he does in the first half of the episode is put himself in a barrel, like I said earlier. And with only that much information in the first half, I don't really have any notion to see whether or not I shall like this guy. Afterwards, we have the main villain of this episode, Alvida. Her shtick is that she's a pirate that believes she's the most beautiful being on the planet. Now, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I think the beholder needs to get his eyes checked if they're calling Alvida beautiful. At least in this episode, alright? On top of her quote-unquote mesmerizing beauty, she tends to just terrorize a bunch of civilians just to get some treasure. This is just your cut and dry, plain and simple evil villain. Unfortunately, we're not yet dealing with such high caliber villains like Crocodile and Doflamingo with very unique motivations and goals. But that's not all. Finally, we have this little kid named Koby, and this is where I think things get interesting here. You see, I thought Koby wasn't as relevant to this episode as I thought originally. I thought he was just kind of like a comic relief character who's supposed to bring in a little light humor to the episode. I mean, come on, the dude was just trying to go fish but ends up on a pirate ship by accident. But as I kept watching this episode, there was something different about Koby compared to the other characters in this episode. What was fascinating was that in most of the scenes he was in, I was starting to actually get more immersed into the world of One Piece. At this point, I was completely confused. This doesn't make any sense. This can't be true. If Oda made Luffy the main character of the show, then why am I not relating to Luffy to begin with? Why am I relating more to this scared little kid compared to the main character of the damn show? But then it dawned on me. When Luffy and Koby started talking to one another, I started to understand why I liked Luffy as a character in the first place and why I kept watching more of One Piece. You see, Koby plays a major role in getting you to relate to the world of One Piece. He's absolutely scared and completely confused as to what is happening most of the time, which, funnily enough, is kind of how a newer viewer would be when starting this show. All you know when first watching this episode is that there is this giant treasure that every terrible pirate is going to destroy everything and everyone in their way just to go and get it. To the normal person without any powers whatsoever, you can't help but feel absolutely scared to live in a world like this. For Koby, this is his daily life up to this point. He's been a slave on this pirate ship for 2 years now. He's powerless and has absolutely no belief in himself to get out of the situation he's in right now. I personally think a lot of people can relate to Koby in this way because we've all been there. We've all felt scared or powerless in certain situations and felt like we had no belief in ourselves. But in comes this random kid with a straw hat named Luffy that takes out 2 pirates and is only obsessed with trying to fill his stomach up with food. All the while, he's about to be chased by a bunch of killer pirates soon. Koby tells Luffy he needs to run before Alvida's crew comes to get him, but Luffy doesn't care. And so the both of them walk into the storeroom. As they spend more time in the storeroom, the both of them start talking about dreams and the reasons why they were out to sea. Koby says he has goals he wants to accomplish, but he doesn't really say them outright. However, Luffy, on the other hand, tells his dreams outright and says he's going to be king of the pirates, in which Koby tells him it's impossible. But Luffy says that he's decided to become king even if he dies in the process because that's truly what he wants. Upon hearing this, Koby starts to actually gain courage to proclaim his dreams of becoming a Marine, realizing that if he really wants to become a Marine, then he has to do whatever it takes to get there. It's from this conversation you understand the whole point of what One Piece is about. It's not about if you can accomplish your goals, it's about you trying to accomplish your goals. In this scene, both Luffy and Kobe are polar opposites of one another. Kobe is scared and cautious while Luffy is reckless and confident. This idea of opposites in writing terms is called foiling. Foiling is when you put two characters with opposite character traits next to one another in order to highlight the main theme of the story. Because you have started to relate to Kobe in the first place, it only makes sense that Luffy's words in this conversation start to have some real emotional impact behind them. If Kobe didn't exist, we wouldn't have an outlet to hear the message that Luffy was trying to tell us in this first episode. That it's okay for us to chase our dreams, that we need to believe in ourselves to actually accomplish the things that we want. From there, we are absolutely hooked into this show and want to continue to see Luffy's journey as he tries to become the Pirate King. As we continue to watch the different points in this show where people say, oh, this is where One Piece actually gets good, this is where we get way more invested into the show and understand the reason why One Piece is such a good story. And all of this wouldn't have been possible if Kobe didn't exist. Looking back at it all, I can understand why Kobe is the reason I was hooked into the show in the first place. Me starting this show is similar to how Kobe is just a normal guy trying to fish, but ends up on a pirate ship by accident. When you first watched this show, you were literally being dropped into this crazy world just like Kobe is. Even though Luffy is trying to gather more members for his crew, you still want to see if Kobe follows through with his promise of joining the Marines, which fortunately he does after Luffy beats Axe-Hand Morgan. The change in Kobe in the first episode is what gets us absolutely hooked into the show and believe that we can do what Luffy does if we put our minds to it. Not stretch our limbs out like a rubber man, but follow our dreams and believe in ourselves. After working on this video, I have a newfound respect for Kobe and the way Oda has kept incorporating his character throughout the series. Even though we see less of Kobe in the show, it's still pretty endearing to see him working so hard thanks to Luffy. To me, Kobe acts as a marker of growth, not just for Luffy, but for you and I as the viewer. Because Kobe was just like us in the beginning. We didn't know if our dreams were worth chasing. We didn't know if we were capable of accomplishing our goals. But with his growth and his efforts blossoming as the series progresses, we start to believe that all we need to have is a little faith in ourselves. That at the end of the day, the person you are right now is enough to accomplish the things that you've wanted all along. On that note, I like to say thank you for watching. I've been Luck Deep. And remember, stay eccentric out there. Peace.